There you have it. You're already half done. Congratulations. But now it's time to get started on your next speech. This is a persuasive with visual aid speech. As always, you have some sample persuasive speeches to take a look at. None of them perfect, so when you watch them, think about what you should do and maybe what you shouldn't do for your own speech. You also have a mix of people that are doing them from home as well as from the classroom. So your persuasive speech with visual aid is convincing your audience to modify their attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors concerning your topic. You're building on what you learned for the informative speeches and getting them to think about what it is you're talking about, either seeking immediate agreement, yes, I will stop smoking immediately, or yeah, people shouldn't smoke, even though I don't. Again, either agreement or immediate action on their part, depending on the topic, is up to you. Each speech, however, should have a clear call to action so that your audience understands exactly what it is you expect them to do, think, or believe. Now, persuasive arguments use ethical, logical, and emotional appeals, which we've learned about in our chapter textbooks. Specifically for this speech, the time limit is 5 to 7 minutes, so it's a little bit longer. You will have one visual aid required, and you have 4 minimum sources, with at least 2 non-internet sources. So let's take a look at the speech packet. Here we go. Everything that I've already told you about. Now remember that persuasion is not arguing. Now, persuading audience members who disagree with you requires you to think about why they disagree with you. Identify those areas where the audience members can be moved and speak to those areas in a way that highlights your shared interests. I like to call these the but what abouts. Say you're giving a speech on giving up smoking, and people will say, well, I like smoking. It's fun. But what about the health consequences? But what about the fact that every time you smoke a cigarette, you take so many minutes off your life? But what about the fact that it's hard to afford other things if you're constantly smoking? But what about the fact that vaping to quit smoking probably doesn't work? But what about etc., etc., etc.? Think about why someone might not be persuaded and try to counter argument with a but what about. You'll need to show at least one visual aid during your speech, and this can be any type of visual aid. Now, if you have multiple ones, make sure that you use either multiple poster boards or multiple slides rather than shoving them all on the same one. Now, you want to be sure that you write the visual aid into your preparation outline. If you choose to use PowerPoint, remember to focus on images rather than text. And if your technology fails, sorry about that. I have had students just describe what their visual aids might look like. Do what you can. The speech preparation outline requirements, they're the same. And here's your evaluation form, your rubric. The preparation outline is only worth 30 points this time. By now we're pretty far into the semester. You should have your preparation outline down pat. The introduction is 30 points. Structure, organization, and support is worth 40 points because we're persuading. There's more structure, organization, and support required. Delivery, we're ratcheting it up a little bit, 30 points. Visual aids are worth 25. Making sure that they serve a purpose, were observable, and accurate. You don't want to just have a visual aid for the sake of having a visual aid. Make sure that it communicates some kind of information. And again, it doesn't have to be a PowerPoint. It can be a model. For instance, if you were giving a speech on, maybe you were giving a sales speech and you wanted to talk about how to sell something, you can show the actual product. This is a blue snowball microphone that I use to record with. You can demonstrate the effectiveness by listening to it right now. Online presentations worth 10 points, and the conclusion is also worth 10 points. So what are these speeches going to look like? Well, here's a sample persuasive speech with VA preparation outline on prison reform. Persuading my audience that prison reform is necessary to improve the effectiveness of the prison system. Unfortunately, the prison system in America has proven to be ineffective in working to decrease crime. But there are multiple ways that prison reform can help make necessary changes to improvement. Include your YouTube link for online speeches. And here, this is a great example of including a visual aid in the actual outline. I have seen speeches where someone will give an entire speech and then turn around and say, and here is my visual aid where I talk about this and this and no. The visual aid needs to be actually part of your speech, not separate from something that you just did as an afterthought. Make sure that you incorporate it into the actual speech, and feel free to say, this is when I'm going to show my visual aid. Transitioning into the body, you have sub-points, etc. Again, nothing lonely. Transition, so why should you care? Now that's a good answer to the but what about question. I'm not in jail. I didn't do anything wrong. Just taking a moment to assume that everyone in jail has done something wrong, which of course we know isn't true. So why should you care about people in prison or starving children in another country or anything that doesn't directly impact you? You might want to address that in your persuasive speech. Third main point with sub-points, etc. And then reviewing the main points, restating the thesis, etc. The works cited, great. A ebook from the library, excellent. An American magazine, beautiful. Excellent work here. And here's another one, a persuasive speech on the benefits of traveling. So it doesn't have to be a super sad speech about prison reform or HIV/AIDS or anything that's terrible. It can actually be good, persuading people about the benefits of traveling. Again, using the visual aid as an attention getter. That's one place for it. Totally fine. Also, you can use persuasive speech visual aids to communicate information, especially statistics and things like that. Just make sure that no matter how you present your visual aid, the information is visible. We're talking about how traveling can improve your health, can elaborate on your ability to have communication skills, and make you more open-minded. A great preview of the speech talking about the main points. Here's another place where the student shows a visual aid and cites her source. Charlotte Gerber is the person who wrote the source that the student is citing. Here's another one, according to B.B. Gump and K.A. Matthews. Traveling can actually reduce your risk of heart attacks. Awesome. And here's another one, a visual aid. According to the book From the Cubicle to the World, author Brett Roberts talks about you building self-confidence, strengthening your teamwork skills, etc. Again, no lonely subpoints, they're all together. Having the work cited here. Vacations, I keep saying vaccinations. Vacations are good for you, medically speaking. Now this is a website, that's fine. This is in print. This is Forbes magazine, great. All great sources. And here is a potential persuasive topics list. So you're coming up with a topic all by yourself, which might be a little bit intimidating, but here are a list. Now you might notice that some are bolded and some are not. That's just stylistic to help differentiate between the two lines. But otherwise, any of these are potential topics that you might talk about, or you can of course come up with one on your own. It's just something to get you thinking about. Oh, I do care about Islamophobia, or PTSD in the military, or state religious displays. I would like to tell you that I'm for or against this. Here are some potential topics that you can use for your persuasive speech with visual aids.